everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and guys, I did it. Nobody was watching me. Nobody stopped me. I read another Ali Hazelwood book. I know, I said I wasn't going to. I said I needed a break, and I mean, technically I did take a break because it's been several months. I think June was the last one that I read. But I did it. I couldn't help myself. Okay, so here's what happened. So I was listening to the Currently Reading podcast, which if you haven't, it's a really great podcast. You should definitely listen to it. I've got a lot of great recommendations from that podcast. And they were talking about how like some authors just follow a formula and that's their thing and it's okay to like that. And I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Like I was just like, oh, these are all exactly the same story with different people in them. I'm kind of getting tired of this, but you know, if it's an intentional thing, that kind of makes sense. Like following a formula to get the product that you want. Like I kind of get that. So that was my approach to this book. And I do have to say, I enjoyed it more, I think, than the other ones because I knew what to expect. So anyway, I guess it's not that much of a problem. You're off the hook for letting me do this. The book is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I believe this is a YA book. The characters are a little bit younger and the romance is dialed down a little bit. So this is, I think, targeted toward a little bit of a younger audience, which was a nice change. So I'll do a quick summary as always, and then I'll get into spoilers, all of that stuff, and my thoughts about the book. This is the story of Mallory Greenleaf. She was like a child prodigy at chess, but she hasn't played for a really long time because of reasons that we'll find out in the book, until she decides, hey, I'm gonna hop back in to help out a friend in a charity cause, and she ends up playing chess against the #1 ranked chess player in the world, Nolan Sawyer, aka the King Killer. She's offered a job to continue playing chess and to be able to take care of her family. She takes that job, but is in danger of kind of losing this promise she made to herself that she wouldn't play chess anymore, and losing the ability to stay away from Nolan Sawyer. So that's kind of the basic summary of the story. Let's go ahead and get into the details and some of my thoughts on the book. Going back to what I said about following a pattern, this does indeed follow a pattern. So we have a female main character. We have a very tall, very built male character who falls in love with them at first sight and is hopelessly pining after them for the rest of the story until they finally catch on that they have feelings too. That's the plot that the story follows. Inevitably, at the end, she's gonna screw it up, and then there's going to be some sort of reunion where they, you know, make up and everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. So like that's the format that we're working with here. And again, this one does hold true to that. So Mallory graduated from high school. She's working at a garage that her uncle used to be a partner at. He's no longer there, so she just works for this like really mean guy that she doesn't like all that much, but the hours are good, the pay's good. She is kind of single-handedly supporting her family at the moment. Her mom is ill and not always able to work, so Mallory is kind of taking care of her mom and her 2 younger sisters. Her best friend is currently getting ready to head off to college, but before she does, she is part of this chess club and they are doing this charity event and she needs somebody else to participate. So she asks Mallory if Mallory would be willing. And, you know, Mallory, as I said in the little synopsis that I gave, the summary, doesn't do chess anymore, wants nothing to do with chess, but she's willing to do it for her friend. Her friend also kind of throws food in the mix too, so, you know, it's hard to say no to something when there's food involved. So she ends up showing up at this tournament using her previous rank. They place her in one of the top tiers, and she ends up sitting across the table from the #1 ranked chess player in the world, as I said, Nolan Sawyer, aka the King Killer, and she beats him. What a shock. He is like, just like taken aback, and being a child chess prodigy, he was in the news a lot, and she knows that he's kind of a brat. Like, he's knocked tables over, he's like yelled and thrown tantrums. I mean, he's like an adult now, so you would hope that wouldn't happen, but she's like kind of terrified at what he's going to do because she beat him, so she just runs away. You know, what any sane person would do. Later, a woman shows up at her door and says like, hey, I own this chess club in New York. This takes place in New Jersey, by the way. We're looking for essentially like an intern of sorts. It's a paid internship, and we're trying to raise the prestige of our club. We want it to become more recognized and more reputable than some of the older clubs. So we're looking to find some really excellent chess players that can compete in tournaments and just get our name out there. So we have a paid internship. It's 1 year. We are wanting to offer it to you. And initially Mallory's like, yeah, no, wrong person, sorry. No thanks. But when she really starts to think about it, she looks at the pay and the opportunities. She can't turn it down. Also convenient that she gets fired from the garage at the same time, so she doesn't really have much of a choice. She takes the internship, but she doesn't want to tell her family. And here's why. Like, this is kind of revealed slowly throughout the book, so I'm just gonna give you all the deets right away. So when she was a child competing in chess tournaments, her dad was like kind of obsessed with it and like really pushing her to like compete and to get better. And then he started having a thing with somebody else that they met at the tournaments. And so Mallory she like noticed the interaction and figured out what was going on and was really upset and told her mom. Her mom kicked their dad out. And then a couple of weeks or months later, he got really drunk and was killed in a car accident. So she blames all of that on herself playing chess and now wants nothing to do with it. And now she has like this job playing chess, and she doesn't want to tell her mom because she's afraid it's going to make her upset about what happened with her dad. So she lies. You know, what else? What else would you do in that situation? And she comes up with a really good one too. She's working at a retirement home in New York, and that makes sense with all the trips that she has to take for all of the tournaments that she's in, because why wouldn't you take old people to Toronto from New York City? So she's working, she's kind of making friends with other people there, kind of not. She's learning more about the game. It's a really intensive process. So prior to this schedule starting, she has an hour-and-a-half commute, I think. So 8:55 she has to arrive at the office. 9 to 10, memorize assigned list of opening variations. 10 to 11, memorize assigned list of endgame positions. 11 to noon, go over assigned list of old games and tactics. Noon to 1 is a break. 1 to 2, analyze assigned opponent's games. 2 to 3, logical thinking and positional chess review. 3 to 4, training with software and databases. 4 to 5, on Wednesdays through Fridays, meet with a grandmaster trainer to go over weaknesses. And on top of that, she's supposed to work out 4 to 5 days a week for approximately 30 minutes because apparently you need physical stamina to play chess. Now, here's the thing. I've played chess like that much. Like, if I had a rank, it would probably be in the negatives. I know that there's a lot that goes into chess. I don't get the physical part though. Feel free to correct me. Like, if you know something about chess, that's awesome. I just tried playing chess.com and I did horribly. So throughout her training and going to tournaments, of course, she interacts with Nolan Sawyer more as she's going to these things, but she refuses to play him if she can help it. She really does not want to play Nolan again. And she's convinced herself that he hates her because she beat him. I mean, why wouldn't he? So she's introduced to a couple of other players that are kind of prominent in the world of chess. They're all kind of nasty for the most part. There's some nice ones that are all like part of Nolan's like little inner circle that she becomes friends with. And eventually they kind of get to know each other. He shows up at her house and claims to be a coworker of hers at the retirement home. And her mom's like, hey, boyfriend, right? And she's like, no, definitely not. And he just really wants to play a game of chess against her because he's the best that there is, so there's not a lot that challenges him. So he's looking for a challenge, which is her. So eventually they do end up playing a game after a tournament, just like a late night kind of game. He's like, I really wanted to play with you. They realize this is the moment where she's like, you like me? Okay, well, I think I like you too. that sort of thing. So there's that part of the formula. And then we have this like elite group of grandmasters, high-ranked individuals who are chosen to then compete against Nolan in the championship to find out who is the new world champion in the world of chess. The organization is allowed to kind of choose somebody, really not based on rank, just kind of because they wanna, like a wild card sort of thing. So they pick Mallory, of course. She's like thrilled that she gets a chance to compete, and they're working really hard to train her. And then suddenly somebody, you know, probably waves a few $100 bills in front of somebody's face and says, hey, you know, you really can't pick her because she's not technically ranked. So she has to not compete. And because of that, Nolan then asks her to be one of his, like part of his team that is helping him and coaching him and training him. So she goes from training herself to now training him. And she finds out, you know, that his background isn't all that different from hers. Like some of the family dynamics were similar, that his dad and his mom could really care less about chess. His grandfather was the one who really enjoyed playing. He was a grandmaster and I think a world champ as well. Like Nolan didn't get along well with his parents. He ended up then moving in with his grandfather, who taught him everything that he knew. And then his grandfather was, you know, struggling with some health stuff toward the end of his life, and he ended up being moved into a home. So that kind of made Nolan alienate his family even more. And then he ended up, of course, passing away, and Nolan was very upset about that. So now he lives in his grandfather's apartment in New York and is, you know, working to continue playing the game that they bonded over. So Mallory is helping him train. One of the people in like the semifinals cheated, and there's like video footage of him actively cheating. So he is kicked out and Mallory is put back in. So now she and Nolan are going to be competing against each other, and they kind of have this big fight before she leaves that just, she says some nasty things, he says some nasty things, and she's just kind of like, hey, I'm out. That's where she kind of messes things up, see, following the formula here. And so then she is really focused on training. At this point, we realize that her mom and her sisters, guess what? They didn't buy her lie that she was working at a retirement home. They kind of figured out that what she was doing. She was all over the news. There were all these articles about her. And her mom kind of says, you know, like, I'm really proud of you. I never wanted you to stop playing chess. I just didn't want you to have to do it, because her dad was kind of making her. It's not your fault that he died, because like it wasn't the first time that he was messing around. So just because you told me about it doesn't mean that it's your fault. Like our marriage probably would have ended anyway. And like, you know, he knew what he was doing, and it's actually his fault for putting you in that situation. And then she kind of has an equal moment with her sisters where they say, like, you know, I don't need you to be my parent. I need you to be my sister. You treat me differently, all this kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of family dynamics that just read the book to get those. I'm not going to go over all of them. But she spends the next couple of months training, you know, getting things back to normal with her family. They finally go to, I think, Italy for this big world championship. And the morning before, she and Nolan are kind of each individually checking out the spot where they're going to be competing against each other, because final two came down to them. What a surprise. They have this moment, you know, where she apologizes and he apologizes, and they're like, you know, we want to have this relationship. We want to make it work. It's going to be tough because we're competing against each other. And, you know, she's like, I don't really know like what to do. I don't think now's the time to be having this conversation. And he's like, we're literally about to sit next to each other for hours and play a game of chess. I think now's the perfect time to talk. Like, we're gonna have so much time to talk. What's cool about how the book ends is we don't find out who actually wins the tournament and who becomes the world champion. It's kind of hinted at that it's Nolan, but it's not really confirmed. So like the story kind of ends, and then there's an epilogue of like all these like news articles about them from several years later, and he's like mentioned as number one for a couple of those. So it's kind of hinted at that he won, but it's not like fully confirmed. And it's kind of cool because like it doesn't really matter. Like that wasn't the point of the story. The point was like them. So I thought that was cool. I did like that. So that's pretty much it for Check and Mate. I feel like we kind of covered all of the formula parts. Like, you know, they were kind of, he was obsessed with her from the beginning because she beat him at chess. She was like, oh, he hates me. And then eventually, you know, was like, ooh, maybe I don't hate him though. And he very much did not hate her. Then she messed it all up. And then they got back together at the end. So that's pretty much it. This probably could have been a 30-second video just talking about that. But if you're interested in learning more, definitely check this out. I do recommend it's a fun, quick read. I read this on a plane in like just, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 hours. It was a pretty quick read. So if you're looking for something for romance, especially with Valentine's Day coming up, give this one a shot. So that is the end of this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.